Good morning, Dad.
Morning.
Welcome back to the podcast. And lots been going on lately, and I feel like it has to do a lot with this podcast. So we'll go ahead and do the intro here.
Sure.
So we start with this question. Have you ever felt like life is spinning out of control with one interruption after another? Yes. Have you wondered why God seems to delay helping us when you need him most? So today's story of Jairus and the woman who suffered from bleeding teaches us that basically God's timing is different in the sense that it's perfect, even when we don't understand it. So we're going to see two interconnected stories that reveal how God works through chaos and delays of just our daily life in order to accomplish his purposes. So this is very relevant.
Absolutely.
Jesus, as we're going to see, was interrupted by Jairus as he spoke at a dinner. He's at Matthew's dinner. Jairus interrupts and then says, hey, come and help me. And when Jesus is helping Jairus, they're interrupted by a woman who's in desperate need of Jesus. And then while that woman's being helped, they're interrupted by the messengers who say, your daughter's dead.
Yeah.
So a lot of things. And yet we're going to see that all of these things are working together for good.
That's right.
And also how all our stories are kind of intertwined.
Exactly.
Something bad might happen for us, which might help somebody else. So this is episode 59 in the Jesus Said That series, looking at every word Jesus spoke in the New Testament. Today's episode is titled, God's Timing is Never Late, Jairus and the Woman Who Touched Jesus, from Matthew 9, Mark 5, and Luke 8.
I feel like today I should pass you the violin and let you play your little tune there. Your water heater went out and you've had issues and it's been a couple of days now. And, you know, you got all these children and all. I'm going, that's a horrible pause, right? We had a minor one the other day. Of course, someone got into our credit card and ordered stuff, that just, it wasn't us. And, you have to go through, but you have to stop, and you have things you want to do. I have things. And so what do you do with the pauses? So this is Pastor Kenny, the associate pastor of the Comer Bible Church, and I'm the senior pastor, Dr. Ken Burge, and it's awesome to be doing number 59 with you here.
Oh, we made a long way.
We have.
So yeah, our waters, it's Thursday and we've been out since Saturday.
Oh, wow.
So it's no fun not having any water, but thankfully you live close. And Papa, who's Becca's dad, lives close by too. And everyone's been pitching in, which we really appreciate it. Yeah. So, but yes, it's hard when it's a family of, 6? I always think we're a family of 5, but we're 6, about to be 7.
Yeah.
And you don't have water, you can't flush toilets, you can't get... There's a lot going on, so we've appreciated being able to take showers and stuff at your house.
Yes.
But I feel very unclean. It's just weird when you can't, do the basic things. Wash your hands, flush the toilet, things. A lot of baby wipes and trips to your guy's house. But it goes perfect with today's.
It does.
Lesson.
Couldn't you have found a happy text? Maybe we could have experienced joyful experiences.
Yeah.
That's right.
We can get right into this. So just for context, if you've been following along, you realize that we ended last time where Matthew had Jesus at his house. They're having dinner and Jairus suddenly arrives.
Yeah.
And he's a respected synagogue leader, but he starts begging for help. And I would say he was probably frantically searching for Jesus.
Yes.
While Jesus was at this feast, probably saying, where is he? They knew he could help, and he's looking everywhere, and he finally finds him at this party. And he comes before Jesus exhausted, and Jesus was in the middle of teaching about why his followers don't fast. So he's in the middle of this explanation. Jairus interrupts him, but Jesus gets up and follows him. So he has compassion. And a huge crowd followed Jesus, and as they're rushing to Jairus' house, we're going to see a woman's going to come who has this horrible problem.
Yeah.
And this is going to probably test Jairus' patience. You think your daughter's dying, you finally found someone you think can heal her. Yeah. There's a limited time, and then Jesus just stops in the middle and say, "Who touched me?" You're probably like, hurry up.
Exactly.
Get here and save. So we'll get started with Matthew 9.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come to verse 18. I know that's following a little bit where we left off, but I think it picks up nicely.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Matthew 9:18. As he was telling them these things, once again, just refer back to the former podcast, suddenly one of the leaders came and knelt before him saying, "My daughter just died, but come and lay your hands on her and she will live."
Yeah.
All right. So the leader in this is definitely Jairus.
Yeah.
We know that from Mark and Luke. And his faith is remarkable because, as we will see, he can raise the dead. Now, it's kind of confusing trying to harmonize this because it seems like he's saying in one passage she's dying and one she's dead.
Yeah.
So it seems like they're kind of summing it up here.
Yes.
So here she comes. It's like, "My daughter is dead. Please come, lay your hands on her. She will live." Maybe he knows at this point that she has died. He's been looking for her. She's close to death. He knelt before Jesus, which shows that he respected him.
Yeah.
He wasn't like a lot of the religious leaders. This would kind of be like a very important politician coming before someone and kneeling. So it's showing, he has respect for Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not, "Come and heal her,"
Yeah.
So Jesus and his disciples get up and follow him.
Yeah.
So here they come, and it says they follow him, and he's ready to help in a crisis. Now, there's this huge amount of people at the feast, some eating, probably some watching, and they follow too.
Yeah.
So lots going on. It's quick. Just then, a woman who had suffered from bleeding for 12 years, now notice 12, we're going to see that a couple times, approached from behind and touched the end of his robe. And I should probably point this out. We're going to look at Matthew first because surprisingly, he has the shortest account.
Yeah.
And then we're going to look at Mark's account, which is the longest account in my estimation. I mean, Luke's pretty long too.
Right.
But then Luke will just read through that to sum up what we've read.
Yeah.
Just see her progression. So she comes up and touches the end of his robe, for she said to herself, "If I can just touch his robe, I'll be made well."
Yeah.
So according to Leviticus 15, this woman was unclean.
Exactly.
Ceremonial, not spiritually, but just ceremonial. And we always make that distinction between ceremonial and morally.
Yes.
So she's unclean. However, her uncleanness, she can't make Jesus unclean because he's perfect.
Yeah.
So if she touched another normal human, that person would also be unclean. So for 12 years, she wouldn't be able to go to the temple. For 12 years, she wouldn't be able to go anywhere because she has this blood flow that won't stop. So it'd kind of be like living with a catchy condition in our modern society where people just stay away from you. Yeah. That's what she had to deal with. So she can't go probably in the market. There's many places she cannot go.
Yeah.
And 12 years is a long time.
It's so intriguing, just the entire account and everything going on with Jesus. It's my daughter. Luke points out, it's always interesting, Luke's details, my only daughter. And not that, if you have two daughters, you can expend one. It's not the idea, but it's precious to him. But then you got the multitude thing going on, which is not going to slow it down. But it wasn't all that long ago when Jesus had cast the demons out of the men into the swine that the multitude there said, "Get out of here. We don't want you here." This multitude is again following. It just shows you the polar extremes that transpire with ministry. And this is just one of those cases that you have that. I find it 12 interesting also. That's a long time to be in this condition. That's a long time. And yet this is the age of the man's daughter too. So the parallels.
I think there's a parallel there.
Yeah.
So she's been sick 12 years, and I think it's kind of wrong to say it's an inconvenience.
Yeah.
But it definitely would have been a horrible time.
Yeah.
But yet God's timing is going to be perfect with healing her to bring himself glory, God glory. And I think the question is, I have a question here in my notes. Ask yourself, when do you pursue Jesus the most?
Yeah.
When everything is great or when you are having troubles? So it's generally when we're having troubles that we seek him.
Yeah.
And also I want to point out that it seems like she definitely has faith in him. Because she pursues him and is willing to touch him and risk all these things, as especially we're going to see in other passages, she's kind of putting it all on the line. So there's definite faith that Jesus has the ability.
And here is an account where you have two people expressing faith. The way I'd written in my notes is seek the restorative touch of Jesus. When Jairus comes, he recognizes something about Jesus's person because one of the accounts says he worshiped him. He not only just bowed down, but he gets not only his person, but then his work, because he says, touch, come touch my daughter. So he understands that there's the restorative ability where this gal reaches out and just grabs. I'm sure many of the people had bumped into Jesus because the throng is about him, but these came in faith. So I think that's a strong tie with these two accounts.
And stick around for Mark's account, because we're about to see in a lot more detail probably why she may have touched him in the way she did. Be it she was bankrupt, all the problems. So we'll see that, but we're just in Matthew's account. So I think she's probably respecting a rebuke. She's probably expecting, why did you touch me, you dirty person? But Jesus turned to her in verse 22 and said, have courage, daughter. Your faith has saved you. And the woman was made well from that moment. So he uses the name daughter to show she's loved, she's cared about. And I think that also ties in with Jairus' daughter, the whole point. Now, touching a Jewish man while being unclean would make that man unclean. And Jesus shows her kindness. And the point is that faith is the instrument that brings the poor in spirit to Jesus. It's not that faith saved her. It's who she had faith in.
Exactly.
So the power came from Jesus. The power didn't come from her faith.
Right.
So the faith is the instrument that brings her to Jesus. And then because of Jesus's power, he heals her. It seems like in the past she had faith in doctors. They all failed her. Now she puts her faith in Jesus, and Jesus makes her well.
Your faith is only as good as the object of your faith. And she's reaching out to Jesus for the touch of his powerful soul, if you will, that can restore her. And it's intriguing that you had made me well is the same word save as in salvation. We know the context determines the meaning, but it's kind of interesting seeing sozo used there because it's a perfect tense verb. As soon as she had touched him in the past, the results continue. But she's really expressing faith. And that's how we tap into Jesus's person and work is through faith.
And that's what I would want to say. This is when Christian media can be helpful. Like, say I go to Sight and Sound. For those not familiar, it's a big production. We go to in Pennsylvania. I think down in Branson too. And incredible musicals. And it just makes you think about the events that surround everything. Like, we know Noah was not bursting out in song and dancing with the animals. But when you see it, you kind of think, well, what was it like for those women getting on the ark, knowing they never see their family again? What was it like to get off the ark? That's where I think the good and bad of it, I think the Chosen did an excellent job with this woman.
I agree.
And once again, you always take media with a grain of salt. It's not gospel. You need to distinguish what's right and what's wrong. But they had an episode, and that one actually sticks out the most in my mind, is that episode where they talk about this woman with uncleanness. And it really makes you think, because we say, oh, you'd be shunned. But when we see in that episode all the ways that woman is shunned, it kind of sheds some more light, or at least on the cultural aspects.
Exactly.
So that's why I encourage people in certain aspects. Media can be very good. I think long as you're careful and don't buy into everything and take it as gospel. But the same way you would read a book, maybe historical fiction that gives you kind of some ideas, or even watch a play where, like I said, Daniel and Noah weren't bursting in the song, dancing around. But at the same time, it kind of gives you insight. So I think it helps seeing that to know this woman was facing a horrible time. So when Jesus healed her, it just changed everything. So she's healed. Jairus is probably like, come on, Jesus, let's hurry up. Now, Matthew gives the very quick account. It reminds me of Mark, honestly. So when Jesus came to the leader's house, We're going to see from Mark's account, a lot happened between that. He saw the flute players and crowd lamenting loudly.
Yeah.
Leave, he said, because the girl is not dead, but asleep. And they laughed at him. So we see historically professional mourners were hired. So if, say, someone died in your house, you hire these mourners and they'd come to your house and they'd sing and play and cry.
I did just a little bit of research. Poor people were still required to have 2 flute players for a wife's death, and then also 1 mourner. So that was the minimal requirement, and they probably had a lot more because he was rich, and so I would say that there were a lot of folks there.
So he comes, and all this is going on. Once again, this is where media generally gets it wrong. Yeah. We're going to see from Mark's account, there's usually this giant crowd coming with Jesus.
Right.
We're going to see it's a very small crowd, and that's probably why they laugh at him, because it's not like he's some big important man. He's just some 30-year-old guy with a couple friends. And he says, hey, she's not dead. She's asleep. And they're probably laughing because they're like, we're hired to come play for dead people. We were not hired to come to play for people who take a nap. So here they come. They're mocking Jesus. And I believe it's also a picture of human nature, because we tend to mock what we don't understand. Yeah. So they're mocking Jesus. So I like 25. And after the crowd had been put outside, so he kind of like, get out of here. He went in and took her by the hand, and the girl got up. And my advice is, too many Christians focus on mockers.
Yeah.
I think we engage too many mockers, be it online, wherever we are, and we just want to debate people. Yeah. Where Jesus just kind of said, get out of here.
Exactly.
I don't have time for you. Let me get to my Father's business. And he took her by the hand. Once again, you want to do that because you don't touch dead people.
Exactly.
We've been going through the law in our Bible reading, and you don't touch dead people.
Right.
Jesus does. And as he said, she's just sleeping. He touches her and she gets up. And she is healed.
They went from being mourners to tormentors. It's just amazing. But that ability of Jesus to do the impossible is right here. And it's, again, a secluded group that's permitted to see this, because apparently he had just special roles for Peter, James, and John, and wanted them to see more than the others.
And we'll see that in great detail in a moment.
Yeah.
And then we see from the other Gospels that he tells them not to say anything.
Yeah.
But Matthew adds the fact in 26, then the news of this spread through that whole area. So maybe the family didn't listen, but I would say more. If you bring in mourners, people know she's dead.
Right.
And then all of a sudden she's alive. There's going to be rumors, and they're going to say what happened. And they're going, well, this Jewish rabbi who's popular walked in, and now she's alive. I think people could put, one and one together.
Exactly.
And I think the reason why Jesus didn't want people to know this is he wanted to concentrate on his ministry. If people knew that he could raise dead people, I think everyone would be coming to him saying, bring back their loved ones.
Exactly.
If you can actually raise the dead, you could say, bring back my uncle, bring back my grandfather, bring back this person. And that wasn't the purpose of his ministry. So I think that's why he kept it said, don't tell people, because if you have someone who can raise the dead, that would be full-time ministry, just doing that. So I think he tells them to be quiet. Now, do you have anything you want to say before we come to Mark's full account that's really going to inform us?
No, well said. It's just Jesus came to save souls and just didn't want to be known as a person that raises individuals. Even with Lazarus, it's a unique account in the sense of just the intimacy with Lazarus. If you didn't use the word Lazarus, can you imagine him at the graveyard come forth? So it's very particular and specific for a reason.
And in a sense, to fit in with our podcast theme, his timing's perfect. So he will raise the dead.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not only the saved, but the unsaved for judgment. So there will be a best time that he will raise all those who have died in a sense. So
that's right.
We come over to Mark 5, which like I said, it's rare, but this is the most detailed account. And is it more detailed since Matthew was left out and Mark, Peter, who gave the information as we believe to Mark, was there present?
Sure.
Possibly. But it says, one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. We already learned that. And he begged him earnestly, saying, my daughter is dying. Come and lay your hands on her so she can get well and live.
Yeah.
So from Matthew's account, it seems like she was dead. So maybe he says she's dying. She's in the process. She's as good as dead if you don't come. Yeah. So they give this detail. We find out his name is Jairus, and very little is known about this man. All we know is that the Jewish community was split about Jesus's identity.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot more was political to them, where I think this man whose daughter was dying, politics didn't matter to him. It's like, my daughter's dying. I've seen this man do things possibly. After all, Jesus spent most of his time in synagogues. So this man was probably very familiar with his teachings, he healed people in synagogues. So this man was probably very familiar. So he just went right to Jesus. Now, Jesus went with him, and then they add, and we had this in our last podcast, and Jesus went with him, and a large crowd was following and pressing against him. So this is kind of setting up the context. And I kind of think of it, if you were in New York City or any big city and people are brushing up against you, you would have no clue who touched you.
Exactly.
And this is a very chaotic moment. There's urgency. Jesus is at a meal. He gets up. Huge crowds who are at the dinner outside are all following him. And yet it's a quick mission. I'm sure Jairus isn't, saying, let's take our time and stroll. It's please get home as quick as we can. So there's a lot going on here.
Absolutely.
Now, interjected at this time, given more details, it says, now a woman suffered from bleeding for 12 years and had endured much under many doctors. Yeah. So it doesn't sound fun. She had spent everything she had and was not helped at all. On the contrary, she became worse. So we're looking at a woman who went bankrupt.
That's right.
Trying to heal this condition. Didn't have insurance, obviously. It was a different time, different place. And this poor woman, unlike Jairus, who's probably rich, she's poor. And I have some interesting just things I thought of as we come up here, but let me read verses 27 through 29. Having heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his clothing. For she said, if I touch his clothes, I'll be made well. So it seems to be common knowledge at this time that Jesus is this powerful. Instantly, Mark loves to use that, her flow of blood ceased, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. So the question is, why did she not ask Jesus to heal her?
Yeah.
And I kind of have three reasons here. First, she knew she was unclean and could not risk asking Jesus to touch her. Because what if her only hope said no?
Yeah.
So she couldn't risk that. Second one is a logistics problem. There was a massive crowd and lots of confusion. So it would be impossible to engage in conversation and then talk about such a sensitive issue, especially as a Jewish woman, or this woman, I should say.
Yeah.
It would be very difficult to come up and say, hey, can you help me with my medical condition of flow of blood? And too much is going on. And then three, she was bankrupt. So whoever heard of a healer who would heal for free?
Exactly. Yeah.
So
good points.
These are three possible reasons of why she did not come. Because we're going to see in Luke's account that it's almost like she didn't step up until it was revealed, till she knew that Jesus knew.
Yeah.
So whatever the reason was, she was secretive, yet she believed that Jesus's power could heal her. So her faith was justified because as soon as she touched him, she was healed. Now this is when it gets interesting. Jesus immediately, this is verse 30, realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and said, who touched my clothes?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things we don't really understand what that means. Jesus knows that something happened.
Yeah.
But I was kind of thinking more of Jairus at this moment. His daughter's life hangs in the balance. Maybe he knows she's dead because that's what it seems like from Matthew, but there's still some urgency. Didn't, I believe from my research, the Jews teach that your your soul hovers around the body for what, 3 days or
3
so?
days, yeah.
Or 2 days, whatever it was. Was it 2 days? I'm trying to remember. It's been a while.
I'm thinking it was 3 days because
days.
in the case with Lazarus, Jesus stayed away even longer than that. Yeah.
So they believe that maybe he's like, my daughter's dead, but according to our tradition, if you get there,
Got to get there.
time,
Yeah.
before the soul's gone forever.
Yeah.
So he's kind of, probably in a little bit of a panic. The crowd is pressing in. This is slowing their progression. It's like being in a traffic jam, trying to, say you're trying to get your daughter to the hospital to save her life, and there's a traffic jam.
Yeah.
Then Jesus stops and starts saying, "Who touched me?" So Jairus is probably feeling very helpless at this moment, probably very stressed out in a sense. And his disciples responded, "You see the crowd pressing against you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" So from a human perspective, they're like, who knows who touched you?
It's that question from Psalm 13. How long? How long is it going to take to get there? And we come back to wait on the Lord. And it's just, we don't like it, but it has, I think this account has a lot to do with his timing's not our timing.
And Jesus, I think Jesus, I would say, because he's sovereign, knows exactly who touched him.
Exactly.
But
he doesn't ask a question generally because he doesn't know the answer.
I think he's waiting to have this woman come forward.
Yeah.
But he was looking around to see who had done this. So it seems kind of dramatic, like he stops and he's kind of theatrically looking around saying, "Who touched me?"
Yeah.
So in 33, it says, "The woman with fear and trembling, knowing that what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth." So the woman was scared. She was unclean and touched a holy man, and there was no way she could pay him. However, like Jairus, she showed respect and she fell at his feet. And I think she's probably waiting for her to get chewed out. Yeah. She's probably waiting for this Jewish religious man just to go, "Why do you touch me?" And then that's why with Mark's account, it makes Jesus so much more compassionate when he responds, "Daughter," he said to her, "your faith has saved you. Go in peace and be healed from your affliction."
Yeah, I think he needed to have her come forward not only for the public testimony, because she really now is expressing that Jesus is God, but also by coming forward and acknowledging that she's been made clean, she can go back to the temple. She can go and worship where she can. So I think the question draws her out for those two primary reasons, at least.
And I like to how in these passages, and I think it's more of a point just to make for future reference, a lot of people always say every time you see the word saved, it means salvation.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, context always determines. So I think there could be a little play on words here. Your faith has saved you.
Yeah.
But in the direct context, it's you've been saved from your sickness.
Absolutely.
And in Jairus' daughter, the context is going to be your daughter was saved from death. But I do believe there is still a play on words going here.
It's very deliberate, the word choice.
Your faith has saved you.
Yeah.
I think there's two implications going on there. The direct being you're saved from your sickness, you're healed. But I think there's also implication that faith in him has saved her too.
And it makes it easier for preachers. Let's be very honest, because, when somebody comes to Christ, it's for initially salvation, but we have needs. And we're pressing in on him because we're asking him for something. But so you got the dual dynamic going on.
And you have to, I think, be careful as a pastor not to say everything is salvation.
That's dangerous, frankly.
Because I was reading Acts 16.
Yeah.
And they say, "What must I do to be saved?" And the man's clearly asking Paul, "What can I do so I don't have to kill myself or be killed by my officials?" So he's basically saying, "Do I need to bribe you?
Yeah.
What can I do to be saved from this horrible situation?" And I think that's when Paul and Silas, using some wit and quick thinking, say, "Believe on the Lord Jesus Christ."
Yeah.
Where the man's looking at his physical problem and they kind of deflect it to spiritual, which I think is kind of, I don't want to say humor is being used, but they were able to deflect the situation. But like you're saying, we have to be very careful with context to always see what the text is saying. Because people will take a lot of, "This will save you," and always say it's always salvation, where it's not always salvation. But I do think here there's a play on words going on.
Mm-hmm.
So she's healed of her sickness. And while he was speaking, this is verse 35, people came from the synagogue's leader's house and says, your daughter is dead.
Wow.
Why bother the teacher anymore?
Mm-hmm.
So I've heard some people try to harmonize this when in Matthew's account, he goes and basically says, my daughter's as good as dead.
Mm-hmm.
She's dying. She's as good as dead. Please come. And he knows she was going to die. I think sometimes as a parent, you know
Mm-hmm.
when something's happening. And then these people come. They're probably looking for him
Mm-hmm.
because it seems like they meet him just outside the house or pretty close. So they say, hey, your daughter's dead. Don't bother the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say these people don't really have faith in Jesus.
Yeah.
And they said, don't bother this holy man anymore. He's got better things to do. Your daughter's dead. She's gone.
Right.
So from a human perspective, death is final. So these messengers said there was no need to bother Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Now we see in verse 36 when Jesus overheard what was said. So it seems like Jesus is talking to this woman. And while he's talking to this woman, these people come up to Jairus and start talking to him. And then kind of Jesus looks over and hears what they say.
Mm-hmm.
And he says something to Jairus, don't be afraid, only believe.
Yeah.
And the question is, what does he believe in? And he needs to believe that Jesus has power over death.
Yeah.
So we see that Jairus does believe
Mm-hmm.
because Jesus continues with him. Now, this is where we get that interesting detail. He did not let anyone accompany him.
Mm-hmm.
And I would include the crowd here,
Yeah.
except Peter, James, and John.
Mm-hmm.
Poor John, I don't know why he gets this James's brother. It's kind of like, who are you? Where I believe John was probably the last written gospel and
Mm-hmm.
probably last written book in the new, maybe before Revelation,
Sure.
I should say. But it's a late book. So here they're saying, and John, who was James's brother?
Right.
Maybe they're poking at John. I don't know.
Mm.
But Jesus often included Peter, James, and John.
Mm-hmm.
They were at the Transfiguration. They were deep in
Yeah.
the Garden of Gethsemane. And this highlights their special role.
Mm.
And I would say, too, like I said, that I think Jesus told the crowd not to come.
Yeah.
So I think he probably turned around and tells the crowd, hey, I'm going with this guy.
Mhm.
And that maybe they heard and say, hey, this guy's daughter died.
Yeah.
Let's respect that. So, and it could be the whole idea. They don't want to be around a dead body. Who knows? But he just takes these apostles and he tells the other apostles not to come with him.
Mm-hmm.
So Matthew, you go through the list, Judas,
Mm-hmm.
Thaddeus, all those guys, he says, he doesn't select them. He only picks Peter, James, and John. So they go with him and they approach the house and there was the group of people weeping and wailing.
Yeah.
And that's verse 38. They came to the leader's house and he saw a commotion, people weeping and wailing loudly. He went in and said to them, why are you making a commotion and weeping? This child is not dead, but asleep.
Mm-hmm.
So Jesus doesn't see death as final.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this fits in nicely with my idea that Jairus had to find Jesus at Matthew's dinner party. It took some time.
Yeah.
So he leaves. He's searching frantically for Jesus. He finally finds him at the dinner party. He takes him back. There's a crowd. He's like, my daughter's as good as dead.
That's right.
Please come. And then that's when the people come and meet him and say, hey, she is dead.
Mm-hmm.
So think how deflated Jairus would have felt knowing his daughter died while he was gone looking for Jesus.
Yeah. A lot of emotion running through his mind, I'm sure.
So these people, as we saw, they laughed at him. So he put them outside.
Mm-hmm.
He took the child, father, mother, and those who were with him, Peter, James, John,
Mm-hmm.
and entered the place where the child was.
Yeah.
So he just kicked him out.
He did.
Then he took the little child by the hand and said, Talaka kum. You would probably say it better than I could say it, which is translated, little girl, I say to you, get up.
Yeah.
Immediately, the girl got up and began to walk. She was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
At this, they were utterly astonished.
Mm.
So he's using Aramaic, just the everyday language of the region.
Yeah.
And unlike Hollywood portrayals, where the girl is generally, one little thing starts to move at a time.
Right.
It seems like she gets up and just starts walking around the room.
Exactly.
Kind of like a typical 12-year-old, full of energy, and this shocks everybody. So they're like, she's dead, and now she's just walking around like nothing ever happened. Then he gave them strict orders that no one should know about this and told them to give her something to eat. Obviously, people didn't follow through. Maybe it wasn't their fault. Maybe it was, the mourners or whoever, but it got around. Before I just read through Luke's account real quickly, anything you want to comment on or?
Just interesting getting additional detail as you go from account to account to account that I find very helpful. But you've got two people that have some understanding of Jesus's person and work, and through that, the Lord can do incredible things.
So I'm just going to read Luke's account with minimal comments.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, I want you to imagine you're basically traveling with Jesus. You don't know what's going to happen. And just kind of feel how you would react to all of it. Say you're Peter or you're James and you get to see this firsthand, but you don't know how it's going to play out. So when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all expecting him just then. We talked about this in the last podcast. Time had passed. A man named Jairus came. He was a leader of the synagogue. He fell down at Jesus' feet and pleaded with him to come to his house because he had an only daughter who was about 12 years old. I always like Luke's reporting because he gives a lot of abouts and stuff because he wants to be as accurate as possible. And she was dying. While he was going, the crowd was nearly crushing him. All this is going on. A woman suffering from bleeding for 12 years who had spent all she had on doctors and yet could not be healed by any, kind of have to like Luke writing that being a doctor, approached from behind and touched the end of his robe. Instantly, her bleeding stopped. Who touched me? Jesus asked. Now, here's a new detail. When they all denied it, Peter said, Master, the crowds are hemming you in and pressing against you. So it's unclear if the woman denied it initially or if it's just, Jesus said, did you touch me? Did you touch me? And everyone's going, no, we didn't touch you. We don't know why. But I think she recognized that Jesus knew who she was.
Yeah.
Someone did touch me, said Jesus. I know that power has gone out from me. When the woman saw that she was discovered, she came and trembling and fell down before him. In the presence of all the people, she declared the reason she had touched him and how she was instantly healed. So it's a public declaration. It's not, whisper. Daughter, he said to her, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. While he was still speaking, someone came from the synagogue leader's house and said, your daughter is dead. Don't bother the teacher anymore. When Jesus heard it, he answered him, don't be afraid, only believe and she will be saved. Once again, this is an eternal salvation.
Right.
This context, it's saved from death. Just like the woman who was saved, this is talking about physical. And we have to remember, Jesus had just calmed the storm, healed 2 men with demons. So he showed his power over the spiritual, his power over the elements. And that was the day before. And we believe this is probably the next day, or it could even be attached to that day, for all we know. So Jesus has power over all of these things. And now he's showing he's have his power over death itself. And he came to the house. He let no one enter with him except Peter, James, John, and the child's father and mother. Everyone was crying and mourning for her, but he said, stop crying because she is not dead but asleep. So very direct. It almost bothered Jesus, it seemed like.
Yes.
They laughed at him because they knew she was dead. So he took her by the hand and called out, child, get up. Her spirit returned and she got up at once. Then he gave orders that she be given something to eat.
Wow.
Now, this is once again why your spirit is important. Spirit, once the body has a spirit, that's what gives life. That's why we are against abortion. Because if we look at the birth of Jesus, we know that when John was in the womb, it said that his spirit leaped within him, and that doesn't seem poetic or anything. It seems literal. And I believe that once you have a spirit, you're truly in the image of God, and that's why you're important. But her parents were astounded, but he instructed them to tell no one.
Mhm.
And also how Jesus cares for the girl. He says, get something to eat.
That's right.
Just
love it. Mm-hmm.
so. Before we get to our timeless truths and application, anything?
Nope. I think we're flowing on through.
Okay.
Yes.
So timeless truth. Faith in Jesus brings peace during difficult times.
Yeah.
Though throughout history, those who approach Jesus understanding his power over every element find peace and comfort even in the midst of struggles.
Yeah.
Just timeless.
Yes.
God's timing is perfect. Even delays in our eyes can serve a greater purpose in revealing his glory. And then 3, Jesus holds power over chaos, which includes life and death. His authority offers hope beyond physical limitations and things being final. So then we have our applications. Trust God in the interruptions. What feels like a delay in your life might be God's perfect timing. Just as the woman's healing was intertwined with Jairus' miracle, our interruptions can be opportunities for God to work in unexpected ways. So sometimes when things are going bad for us, God might be weaving, someone else's story into our life. Believe in God's power over circumstances. When Jesus says, don't be afraid, only believe, he's reminding us that faith in him transcends human limitations, whether it's illness, death, or delays. And then our final application, recognize God's glory in the chaos. Life is often hectic and inconvenient, but these moments reveal God's power and purpose. Through Jairus and the woman, we see that even in the midst of chaos, God's plan is unfolding perfectly.
That's right.
Anything you want to
share?
The
way I wrote this out was request Jesus's restorative touch. Jairus comes and he says, come and touch my child. There are times we just need to reach out to the Lord because we have a need and we need some kind of healing. It doesn't have to be physical. It can be emotional. We're hurt over something, whatever. But it's the right place to go. You go to Jesus with this. He's the one who understands because he was tempted in all points like we. Then reach Jesus's saving touch. And I use the word saving there. It just means to make you whole. It's not necessarily salvation, but if you're not saved, then you need to reach out for that too. But it's through faith. They came when a situation was impossible to the one that could do anything. And then finally receive Jesus's personal touch through fearlessness and faith. I mean, being told your daughter's dead, you need to be fearless, but it's only the faith that's going to make the difference at the end. And it's the faith in who Jesus is. So hopefully all these things are encouraging our audience out there that you just keep reaching out to Jesus. And that's the important thing to do, but it's through faith, being strengthened by who he is and what he does.
And before we recorded, you were kind of talking about some of the parallels.
Yeah.
What are some of the parallels you see in this passage?
Yeah, the 12 years of age of the daughter. This rich man had his daughter for 12 years. The poor lady had been in that condition for 12 years, and she was sick that entire time. So I think that just shows not only the parallel, but then the major contrast that's going on, because you have a woman that lost everything, a man who seemingly had everything but lost his only daughter, so he also lost everything. But it doesn't matter rich or poor, it's where they go, and it's to the one who can take care of you regardless of your situation. And a lot of times we're placed in limited situations, so we have to trust God. And when we do act upon things in faith, then God can do, because God often limits his people to show what he can do. Even in the sacrifice of Isaac, what would have been the sacrifice, Abraham had enough faith that, okay, I'm going to be obedient because my God can even raise the dead. And that's what the Lord expects of us, just to be fearless through whatever we're going through, and just to hold on to him even when we don't understand the pause, because pauses can be long periods of time.
I think all this is put together just to show Jesus' power over everything.
Yeah.
I think
absolutely.
You just got him healing 2 demoniacs, calming a storm.
Yeah.
Great teaching. He has power over the elements, over the spiritual. He has power over physical ailments. He can even go between life and death itself and bring back someone who's dead. So it shows us, I think, just in these couple chapters, Jesus' identity as the Son of God.
Yeah.
So for a closing thought, these intertwined miracles reveal the depth of Jesus' power and compassion.
Yeah.
They remind us that no situation is beyond his reach, whether it involves physical healing, restoration of dignity, or triumph over death itself. As we reflect on these passages, let us be encouraged to approach Jesus with faith, trusting him to meet us in our need and work powerfully in our lives, even in the midst of chaos.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was podcast 59 in the Jesus Said That series, titled God's Timing is Never Late, Jairus and the Woman Who Touched Jesus, from Matthew 9, Mark 5, and Luke 8. So it always feels good to wrap up a passage. As we both were saying earlier, this was an easier passage with just looking at a narrative. And I know I learned some from it, and I always like easier passages.
Yeah, amen. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, especially when you're teaching.
Yeah.
Because when I approach it always, can I answer questions? I mean, just the other day I was asking you questions because it's like I understand the doctrine, but how can I back it up?
Exactly.
So how have you been doing, or what do you want to share with everybody?
Yeah, I think one of the fruits of our labor is we've been privileged to train a congregation from the scripture what our roles are, and predominantly give ourselves to prayer and ministry to word. We have different dynamics. I mean, you create music, you have an animated Bible curriculum for children. I write books, I write articles, I teach and preach. We do podcasts together. But people ask me, and I've had other pastors, how can you do all that? And the answer is very simply is we've shown our congregation what our priorities are and have encouraged them to respect that instead of the congregation having trained the pastor. I love the picture from John 10 of the good shepherd, and what's he do? He leads the sheep. He doesn't follow them. So we're blessed with a congregation who fully supports all that we're doing, and they help protect our time, and God's surrounded us with good people who have done the same so that they can take care of the widow's needs or this or that, so we can stay focused on our calling. And it's just a great thing to be involved in ministry and have a church that supports us 100% in what we're doing. And I told the board decades ago, just let us do what we're called to do. And the church will do well. And they've supported that. And it's just such a blessing.
Well, I think it's how churches are run. Many churches take the American model of everyone gets a vote, every vote's even.
That's right.
And all of those votes tell the president, and in the case the pastor, what they have to do. Yeah. And it's a very non-biblical view.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Because you have very few votes in the Bible times.
Exactly.
You know, it's usually the men of God did what was right, and the crowd was usually wrong.
Right.
But thankfully at our church, we have people who really care. We have, and it should be to the point that when someone's sick, you know, I'm not saying on their deathbed, but if someone's sick, that other members of the church are the ones who check on them and take care of them.
Exactly.
You know, I hear pastors, and it's like a pastor's changing someone in the congregation's tire. They're up on the roof fixing. They're doing everything.
Exactly.
And if you're doing everything, it's like, well, wait, you're a body. We should all be working together. And I feel like a lot of pastors don't have time to prepare sermons or study because they're busy doing a million other things. And it's a lot easier to say, yes, I'll do this, and then push off that studying God's word than saying, no, or I'll have someone else do it, and making the time to study.
Yeah, the fear of man brings a snare. And when you're afraid of the people you're in charge of and letting them dictate, it's never going to be a good day. Besides that, what happens is the sheep are famished and instead of fed well, and we just got to feed the sheep well.
Yeah, and I think good leadership tries to organize their church in such a way that your elders, I'm a firm believer, a lot of churches' elders are not qualified.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then and then I look at the deacons, and I feel like in America, there's like a 3-step plan, which is not biblical. You become a deacon, and then if you're there long enough, you become an elder. Which an elder from biblical, you have to be able to teach. Usually you're on this like level of a pastor,
exactly,
bishop, where a a deacon simply means servant. That's the person who's dynamic in the church and they're just meeting all the needs and doing. But we kind of have this weird government where it's like we all sit down in a board meeting and then we all have to vote on it. And if that's right, the pastor has to do it.
Exactly.
Like, that's America, democracy. That's not a church.
And that's why when the pastor runs into problems, they're out of the ministry because they were probably never called. And that's a problem there too. Yeah.
So I love democracy. I love it. And
me too.
A pastor should be seeking counsel and advice.
Sure.
But I do see that oftentimes, as you said, the pastor is so bossed around by everyone. He's like, I can't study.
Right. Yeah.
So, and in the same time, you do have the opposite extreme where people just study and never do anything.
That's true too. Yeah.
So you have, there's everything's balanced. But things are going fine enough here.
Good.
Circumstances are not great, but everything's going. Baby's coming in a bit. So hopefully we'll get water today. And
with the next podcast, I won't make us just a 6-ounce coffee.
We have a little coffee. But
that's right.
It's pitiful.
I have to rationalize. Ration it, yeah.
It's when you don't have stuff, you realize how nice it is.
I agree.
So on that note, we'll be wrapping this up, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So hopefully under better circumstances, but God's timing is right.
That's right.
So, we'll see you next time.